Hello there, people of the internet. We are out here today looking at my Arisaka Type 99. This one's not a last-ditch rifle, but boy, is it pretty gosh darn close. So I'm doing this as a little video series of me going through everything inside my arsenal, talking about the history and development of all sorts of different things, and I'm trying to do this to earn my way up to 100,000 subscribers. So if you would like to help me out with that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If not, then maybe I'll get you tomorrow, because I'm trying to put out one of these videos every single day. Don't always work out like that, but boy, am I trying to put out one of these videos every single day. So I do not know if it's up yet. Sometimes with YouTube reviews, it doesn't necessarily go up in order, but I made a video talking about my Arisaka Type 99 or Type 38 here in 6.5 Jap. And during that conversation, I was talking about the development of smokeless cartridges during the time period where smokeless powder was just starting to replace black powder. At that time period, countries were looking to replace their large, heavy, slow-moving rounds with some sleek, much faster moving, much lighter weight, much slimmer rounds that were capable at taking shots out to far greater distances with far more effectiveness at long ranges than the old school black powder rounds. Now, the Japanese, along with a couple other handful of countries, adopted a weaker form of full power rifle cartridge. I don't necessarily want to call 6.5 Jap an intermediate cartridge, but it is pretty gosh darn close to an intermediate cartridge in capabilities. So the 6.5 Jap round was deemed to be, what's the word I'm looking for, underpowered in comparison to what some other countries were using, such as the United States with their 30-06 and the 303 British and the 7.62 by 54 rimmed, and etc., etc. Insert your choice of country here that's using a larger, more powerful cartridge. Like, I got an 8mm Mauser rifle right here, and that's what the Germans were using during the time period where the Japanese decided to adopt a more powerful cartridge of their own. Enter the 7.7 Jap in our Type 38 rifle. This right here is about on par with, the cartridges that were being seen at the time. This right here is I think it's a 311 or 312 diameter projectile. It's a 30 cal projectile, and it is on par with what every other country was using. Now, during the same time period where this more powerful round was being taken up, the Japanese, along with various other countries all around the world, were starting to see that their nice long rifles, like the length of their long rifles, was an unnecessarily long amount of barrel out there on the end of the rifle. So if I line these up, you can see just how much longer the Type 38, this one right here, the Type 38 is than the Type 99. It's longer by, a good 6 inches or so. So the Japanese, on top of adopting a new cartridge, also cut down on the length of their barrel, which is something that basically all countries are doing. The Germans went from a nice long Gewehr 98 to this carbine version. If I line these up, these should be about on par with one another. Yeah, they're about on par with one another. Not quite 100%, but they're pretty gosh darn close. Basically, every country was adopting a shorter, handier version of their rifles during the around the 1940s to the 1950s, but by that point we were adopting the next generation of self-loading rifles. But countries were moving on from their long rifles to their short rifles, and the Japanese just so happened to be looking at a more powerful cartridge. Now, whenever they adopted this, I think it was the late 1930s. I can't remember exactly what year, but the late 1930s, and that is whenever World War II started up. And so World War II absolutely put a dramatic logistical strain on the Japanese trying to adopt 7.7 Jap. Now, the Japanese did adopt 7.7 Jap pretty gosh darn well, especially if we compare it to the Italians trying to adopt their 7.35 round for the exact same reasons. But the 7.7 Jap round was used mostly against the Americans. There was 6.5 rounds used against the Americans as well. But for the most part, the 7.7 Jap was used against the Americans in the Philippine conflicts, and the 6.5 rounds were more or less used against the Chinese and that conflict that the Japanese had going on over there on the other side of their theater. So a lot of us, whenever we think about World War II and we think about Japanese fighting, we think about them fighting Americans because we're Americans. But the Japanese also had a two-front war where they were also taking on the Chinese, and that's probably a history lesson for another video. But the Japanese were mildly successful at adopting the 7.7 cartridge, but I will chalk that up to just like sheer willpower and determination. Of course, after World War II, the Japanese lost, and eventually 7.62 NATO became a thing, and the Japanese got on board with 7.62 NATO, and then just that's a whole history and development aspect. Like, that story is probably best saved for another video. I've made a couple of videos talking about 7.62 NATO, why it was adopted, and the reasoning and the rationale behind its existence after the Second World War. So there's a lot of cartridges that just kind of stopped existing after the Second World War. Countries stopped using them, and the Japanese, with their 7.7 Jap round, is one of those rounds. Now, the 7.7 Jap is definitely a hard thing to find nowadays, and definitely a pricey thing to shoot. So if you're going to get one of these rifles and bring it out, I recommend becoming a reloader. That would probably be the easiest way to go ahead and pull this off. So I myself am a reloader, but even then, brass for this is hard to find, and it's just reloading 7.7 Jap is still a little on the difficult side. So I have one single round here, somewhere here, and I say we go ahead and we just send it either into the car or to the steel silhouette. I sent the 6.5 Jap round at the steel silhouette. We'll go ahead and do the same with the 7.7 because it's sitting behind the bushes there. You guys probably cannot see it. And I just feel like that would be a... What are you? Get off of me. That would be a fitting conclusion? No, a fitting result. It would be fitting to send a Japanese round through some bushes at our target down there. I just feel like that would work out good in my favor. So this right here does have the aperture sight on it. There are some Type 99s that do have like your V-notch sight on it. I definitely prefer the aperture sight. I know that the last ditch rifles, they had like a non-adjustable one set fixed sight, kind of like the Type or the M38 that the Italians were using. I haven't shot this Japanese rifle in quite some time, and I'll be honest, I'm kind of expecting some gas blowback in my face because there's probably some oil or something still left over in this. Let's send it and find out. Nope. But boy, I don't remember this recoiling that hard. That was awesome. So this right here is actually an Arisaka that I brought back to life, and I'm going to save this round because they're reloadable. This is an Arisaka I brought back to life. If you want to watch that video on it, it was completely down for the count and a completely gutted and destroyed rifle, and I had to go through and save it. But this Arisaka was clearly, the stock is clearly handmade, and you can see that all over the stock it is just like very poorly chiseled to kind of somewhat resemble a stock. Hopefully that's showing up okay-ish on camera. If I flip this around and show you guys the pistol grip area right here, you can really see that this woodwork for the stock is really, really rough. And the welding work on this thing, very shoddy. You can definitely tell that these guys were less focused on quality and craftsmanship, and they were focused absolutely more on just getting these rifles out to whoever it is that needed them. So, not quite last ditch, but like I said, boy, is it pretty gosh darn close. Anyway, I think I've covered basically everything that I want to cover with the Type 99. I did glaze over some historical factors, but for the most part, I think that I covered most of everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, hey folks, thanks for watching. I guess I probably should point out that this is essentially a Mauser action. It's the same style of action as the Type 38, and it is essentially a Mauser 93 action. We got ourselves our 2 bolts up there, our long extractor along the bolt body. This right here is not another locking lug. I've 2 locking lugs up there, not 2 bolts. This right here is not another locking lug. There's actually there to hold a dust cover that I do not have on this rifle. And this right here is a cock-on-close system. Like I said, it is essentially a Mauser 93. Not quite exact. There are, of course, some changes. The parts are not interchangeable, but for all intents and purposes, basically a Mauser 93. All right, folks, I think I already said the outro, so I'm just going to say hopefully this earned your subscription, and I will see you guys on the next video. I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.